Well, hey there, everybody. It's Chris from the Rate the Record podcast. And yes, of course, new music review. That's the time of the week it is. And so if you'll give me a moment of your time, I've heard 4 new tracks and I want you to listen to them too because I have opinions on them. I want to tell you about them. I want to hear yours about them. That's how it works. That's how it's always been. So let's just get started then. As I scooch on over this way, I'm going to say something I haven't said since the podcast was actually on. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, share, comment, and follow. All 6 of those things really help out the show. So yes, I haven't said that in a while. Just want to make sure I still had it down. Like, subscribe, rate, share, comment, follow. All of those things really do help. So first up on the list today, we have the band Pearl Jam, the alt-rock grunge act out of Seattle, Washington. And guess what? They're about to release their 12th studio album. You hear that, Savannah? That's at least 9 more years of the podcast to do once you're ready to come back, that is. Because they have this. We've already done 3. They got 9 now by the time we can start the podcast back up. So yeah, that's a long time to do the podcast. But regardless, that's then, this is now. And they just dropped their first teaser from this album, and it just so happens to be the title track called Dark Matter. I'll be quite honest and say that I haven't really paid too much attention to Pearl Jam since their 2005 self-titled album. So I don't really have anything to kind of compare this album to when it comes to things since then. So unfortunately, I'm just going to have to go in slightly blind-ish to this one. There's a good raw energy feeling to this track. It's some pretty straightforward riffage on the guitars, but it's still got a lot of fun heaviness to it. It really does feel like they're trying to recapture their old sound on this one. Again, I can only go by the older material, not the last decade and a half or so, but I think it's done fairly well here. It still feels a little bit on the generic side of things, but for what they're going for and how long they've been at this by this point, it's definitely a passable track. And overall, that's a good place to leave it at, actually. It is indeed a passable track. It's a decent enough return to form, but it's still not quite there. I don't know if Pearl Jam can get back there, whatever that might even mean in my own quotations, but it's passable. I'll give it that. And next up on the list now, we have the band Kittie, who are also coming back. Quite the big comeback for this one, too. The alt-metal, groove metal, much earlier works new metal band out of London, Ontario, Canada are set to release a brand new, yet to be revealed album at some point this year. And if I had to guess, it'd be sometime in the spring or summer, but I'm sure we'll hear about it pretty soon enough. But they did a cold track debut, I think, in late 2023. They did one of those festivals like When We Were Young type deal, and they did a new song called Vultures. But this single today is the first studio-released single by them in 13 years. So professional quality, everything. So the track I'm checking out right now is Eyes Wide Open. Coming into this one, it's interesting to remember that their last album that they released, 2011's I Failed You, is seen as one of the best albums in their discography, especially by a lot of the fans. The songwriting on it was just really solid. There's quite a bit of groove and strong structuring on it altogether. And I personally think that Morgan's scream was top notch at that point. It kept getting better and better through the albums, and she had hit this really great peak. So my question is, what has 13 years done to this band? I think the production in this entire track is really stand out for me. It's got a great warm tone to it, and it's not overly polished like a lot of known metal acts can make their music sound. So I really dig this already just from the production standpoint. And everything feels really tight too. I mean, it feels simplistic, but that's not even necessarily an issue or anything because, I mean, it's intense, it's catchy, and definitely explosive all over the track. So there's a lot going on, there's a lot to enjoy. And Morgan's scream too, again, it's just getting better with time somehow. If you go back through the older material and you listen to the evolution of her scream, it's just gotten so much better. And she's 40 now, so I mean, she hasn't lost it in the slightest, so that's incredibly impressive. But granted too, even with Kittie being off for 13 years, she has been playing for a little while with a melodic death metal band out of Quebec called Car Chaos, so she's had practice in that screaming and everything like that, but it's just nice that she's bringing it back home to Kittie now. Fun fact, did you know that for a college project, I interviewed Morgan Lander back in 2021? There's a little clip of the video playing right there. It was really awkward. I'm not very good at interviewing, but it was really cool to talk to her. She was super nice, and I've been a fan of Kittie for a long time, so that was pretty neat. Thanks, Morgan. Overall, it's good, and I can just simply say that it's good. It honestly is. I mean, it's not game-changing or anything, but at the same time, it's the kind of heavy intensity that I think a lot of Kittie fans would be expecting at this point. You don't gotta fix it if it ain't broke, so by all means, This works, I like this, and I'm very curious for the rest of the album whenever that happens to drop. And for the third spot on the NMR today, we have the band Metz, the second of two bands that we've actually covered on the show before. The three-piece noise punk band out of Ottawa, Ontario, has a new album dropping this April called Up on Gravity Hill. And they've actually released a duo of tracks or singles to, I guess, kind of get the promotional cycle going. So I had to choose between one or the other. I did a coin flip and I happened to get Entwined, parentheses, Street Light Buzz. The very first impression I had of this song is that it seems like they're still going on that same kind of compositional journey that 2020's Atlas Vending was going for. It's much more dressed with melody, and there's also clean structure while still hanging on to touches of their noisier and chaotic side. I think this is honestly the cleanest I've ever heard vocals from Metz be, or at least from what I can remember at the very least. The clarity and sometimes softness of the voice wasn't something I was expecting, but I think it's actually quite nice. I don't know. Wasn't expecting it, but it works here, and I'm digging it. And speaking of things that I wasn't expecting in a Metz song, as we get to the middle of the song and for a brief portion in the middle, you get a very post-punk feeling section of this song, which again, I can't say I saw coming. The clean reverberated guitars, the constant running bass, the drums sounding a little more distant, but it's still kind of marching everything along, and the vocals seeming a lot quieter and almost dejected in a way. It's a pretty interesting moment to have in this song just before the chorus comes back and brings everything home. Overall, I can say it's a pleasant track. I do like this one. It's not as exciting or as chaotic as other songs that I've heard, but this feels like a good track to show to someone if they want to check out Metz, but they're not ready for the blistering insanity or noise that the older tracks can bring. Atlas Vending's probably a good place to start too, but this one works. I like this one, and I think you should check it out. And finally, on the new music review today, we had the band Sunny Day Real Estate, one of the originally slated emo rock bands that came out of the early 90s, and they have a new song out, obviously that's why I'm covering them. And from what I can tell though, it's from sessions or older sessions of an older album from 1998 actually that this song is coming from. That was How It Feels to Be Something On, but it was only recently re-recorded and now it's released out for everyone to have, and regardless, I'm just going to go ahead and check it out now, and the song is called Novum Vetus. I think I'm saying that right. If you are a Sunny Day Real Estate fan and you're listening to this right now, I'm going to make this incredibly clear. I know pretty much nothing about this band. I know the name and that's about it, so I'm going in blind to their entire catalog, and I'm only judging what I hear now, and I'm not going to make any other comparisons to anything else, so just know that going forward, maybe I'm missing something. What I will say is this definitely has those touches of a late 90s track too, and it's nice to have that particular feeling being pulled off very well here. And again, that can only be expected from a song that originally came out in 1998, or was written at the very least in 1998. So this track is 7 minutes and 29 seconds long, and one thing that concerned me when I was going into it was the pacing of the track and whether or not the length was going to be justified for it. The short answer is yes. The bit of a longer answer, though, on the other hand, it does feel like it draws out, like it draws on a little too long sometimes. But the flow of the song actually works really nicely, though, so that kind of counteracts that for me at the very least. And I couldn't imagine a single portion of this track being taken out anywhere. With that, maybe it could be shorter, though. I don't know. I'm a bit back and forth on this longer-winded answer, so I say let's just jump back and stick with the original one where I just said yes. The instrumentals are fantastic on this track as well. You get a span of light and heavy all over it. It all sounds great and it fits in very well. And the vocals, speaking of which too, my god, the tone and style match the emotional atmosphere of this song perfectly. So it has a very pleasant feeling overall. And using that word again, overall, I was pleasantly surprised with this one. I will say that much. Again, didn't know what to expect going into this, but I like this. And because it came out in the late 90s, I guess it makes it a little more nostalgic for me in that sense, in that vein of things. So now I can toss this back at the Sunny Day Real Estate fan listening to this. That might even be you, I suppose. But where should I go from here? I'm curious to check out the band, and where should I begin with all of this? And without saying start at the beginning, give me some recommendations. I'm curious. I want to hear what they got to offer. If there's a good place to start, I'd like to know. I mean, I'm going to check them out regardless, but still, just recommendations are nice. And that's all I have for you on the new music review this week. So thank you very much for hanging out and checking out these songs with me. And if you did indeed check them out, make sure you're letting me know down in the comments below of what you thought of these songs, because I'm curious about your opinion. I always give you mine. I want to hear yours as part of the discussion I'm trying to do. And you can also let me know these things over at ratetherecord.ca as well. Maybe not specifically there, but some of the links that we have. Because, for example, get all of our social medias and streaming links over there so you can leave comments and those things. And you can also get merch, request albums for when the podcast comes back. And there's also Ko-fi.com/ratetherecord, but the Ko-fi link is over at ratetherecord.ca. If you feel like donating to the show at all, your support's very much appreciated. That part is optional, but still, it's there. So yeah, ratetherecord.ca, check that out. There's a bunch of older content that you can go back and check out, seasons of the podcast, a lot of the NMRs, the I Love This Song videos, a lot of stuff on our channel, so make sure that you're checking that out. There's some new stuff coming real soon, and ILTS is coming in a couple of weeks. I finally have the script done, now I just got to get around to recording and editing it, so all good for that. That's going to be on the way very soon. Maybe I'll tease that sooner than later. Live streaming's going to start hopefully towards the end of February, maybe early March. I'm just making sure everything's in order. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure you're checking that out too. And of course, come back for these weekly NMRs, because that's what I just keep doing. So until I see you then, go listen to some awesome music. Take care, friends.